Live proudly, boldly, and with peace of mind by advocating for your health with an early cancer screening. The LGBTQIA+ community is at higher risk of cancer, but screenings can detect cancer early when it's most treatable, giving you the power to live exactly as you are. Talk to your healthcare provider today. If you don't have insurance, talk to a nurse navigator to see if you qualify for free screenings.
New today, burned up over burnouts. What's being done about these so-called unsanctioned car meets in our area. Plus, the final full week of the unofficial summer season is upon us. And for those at our beaches, it could be a rough one. And Newcastle County residents should be seeing a bit of relief in their property taxes, but some may be seeing more relief than others. We'll explain. Those stories and much more straight ahead tonight on DETV News. Good evening and welcome to DETV News. I'm Matt Ford. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Topping the news today, Hurricanes Franklin and Adalia are both expected to take paths hundreds of miles east of Rehoboth Beach, but even that close, they're still already starting to chop up the Atlantic Ocean, going into the unofficial final week of summer on the Delmarva coast. The National Weather Service placed the Delaware beaches into a high rip current risk starting today. The timing of the two storms is poor as local lifeguard units are at their lowest levels of the summer, as beach patrols stocked with college students ready to go back to school over the past couple of weeks. Now, if you do venture into a rip current, you should attempt to signal for help, but try to remain calm. It's recommended you focus on staying afloat or, if possible, swim parallel to the shore until you find a break in the current and you can find your way back to the beach. You should not swim directly against the rip current, as you'll have a better chance of tiring yourself out than actually making progress. Now, according to the National Weather Service, there have been 72 fatalities this year along the United States beaches, including one in Ocean City, Maryland. Both Rehoboth Beach and Ocean City, Maryland are scheduled to have lifeguards daily through September 23rd, although in limited quantities. In other news, police are investigating a shooting on Route 141 that left a passenger in a vehicle with a gunshot wound to his leg. Late Sunday afternoon, troopers found the wrecked vehicle stuck under a guardrail, as you see here. The 18-year-old woman who was driving the car suffered minor injuries, and the 19-year-old shooting victim was also hospitalized. Detectives found several bullet casings in the area. Someone in a red sports car apparently fired the shots, but no information about a suspect is available. Anyone with information is asked to contact Delaware State Police at the number on your screen. Also, police are investigating a fatal crash Sunday morning on Route 113 in Georgetown in Sussex County. Investigators say a southbound car swerved across the grass median and was broadsided by an SUV headed northbound. Officials said two of the injured were trapped in the wreckage of the car, which required firefighters to remove all four doors of the car, cut the flap and roof, and displace the dash to get them out. The passenger in the car, an 18-year-old woman, did die at a local hospital. The driver, a 39-year-old woman, was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. A 4-year-old boy in the back seat was seriously hurt. And police and local lawmakers are looking at ways to interrupt these so-called unsanctioned car meets that are damaging property, fraying nerves, and even led to a shooting death earlier this month in Red Lion. The latest event took place Saturday night at Pike Creek Shopping Center. Videos splashed across social media showed cars doing burnouts, donuts, and drifting across the parking lot. Folks on social media claim there was littering in the streets with alcohol bottles, and the noise they say could be heard from a mile away. The events are called unsanctioned because property owners have not approved of these gatherings. An incident back on August 20th at the Delaware Logistics Center in Red Lion resulted in a shooting which killed a 17-year-old boy. State Representative Mike Ramone said after similar behavior at past car meets on our local roadways, law enforcement, the Attorney General's office, and lawmakers were able to develop a response plan. Those rules, however, may be difficult to impose on an unsanctioned gathering in a parking lot off the roadways. A town hall meeting is set in the works for September. And speaking of cars, as summer comes to a close, the Office of Highway Safety reminds drivers to stay sober on the roads. The Office of Highway Safety reports impaired driving crashes and arrests are on the rise, and alcohol-related crashes often spike this time of year. During last year's Labor Day weekend alone, there were 5 fatal crashes, 3 involving impaired driving. In 2022, impaired driving resulted in 104 serious injuries and over 4,600 arrests on Delaware roads, with men contributing to 83% of impaired driving fatalities. Now, officials say before you head out, think of alternatives to get home. Anything from calling a friend or planning ahead of time to have a designated driver or using a rideshare app. State and local law enforcement officials are participating in what's called the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over high visibility enforcement period that's happening now through September 4th. And a judge has dismissed a lawsuit alleging that Governor Carney and his administration violated the state constitution with COVID-19 restrictions on churches. The case involved pastors from Townsend and Wilmington. They aimed to prevent current and future governors from blocking religious activities. The lawsuit, initially heard in Chancery Court, was later moved to Superior Court. The judge did not address whether the Delaware Bill of Rights mandates churches stay open like retail stores during lockdowns. The pastor's lawyer, Tom Neuberger, plans to appeal this decision to the state Supreme Court. Neuberger seeks a constitutional law ruling on whether the governor's power to discriminate against churches while ignoring bills of rights freedoms is valid. And the EPA is involving Newcastle residents in addressing a polluted waste dump. A meeting at the Route 9 library gathered input on the East Basin Road groundwater site recently added to the Superfund list for extreme contamination. PFAS chemicals in groundwater in 11 wells triggered this. The EPA's aim to study and clean the site, possibly impacted by local sources like the Air National Guard Base and Newcastle Airport. This process could take years, with the delineation of contamination starting in 2024. A community advisory group will connect locals, the EPA, and regulators to discuss concerns and decisions. Groundwater is vital for Newcastle's 5,000 residents, and over 215 are served by public wells. Residents questioned effectiveness and responsibility for the pollution. Now, for more information about how you can get involved with the Superfund site, you can email the email address on your screen. When the county's 2024 budget was announced in May, it included a one-time 5% property credit for all residential parcels that will be seen in the 2023 property tax bills, which are already on their way to residential property owners in Newcastle if you haven't received yours already. Now, Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer says that despite the county's community investments, they have repeatedly run surpluses in recent years, leaving the county with over $100 million in reserves. As bills begin to arrive, Meyer notes that with those who live in one of the county's 14 incorporated municipalities, which includes Wilmington as well as Newark, they're going to see less money back. Here's why. County residents who live in municipal areas get the same percentage decrease, but because your county taxes each year are probably between $50 and $300, 5% of that number is going to be a lot smaller than 5% of, say, $600 to $2,000 that residents in unincorporated Newcastle County pay. Homeowners who pay property taxes as part of their mortgage payments can look for the savings in their escrow accounts. And the Food Bank of Delaware has unfortunately witnessed an upsurge in assistance demand to inflation and the end of expanded SNAP benefits. Despite steady numbers after the end of the emergency SNAP benefits, the organization anticipates effects similar to those states whose benefits actually ended earlier than the state of Delaware's. The food bank associates increased demand with back-to-school expenses. While close to 121,000 people in Delaware use SNAP benefits, food insecurity likely affects actually more than 325,000 individuals eligible for SNAP benefits but enrolled in Medicaid. The Food Research and Action Center is advocating for legislation to expand benefit eligibility through the Farm Bill. That's a package of legislation passed once every 5 years and is up for reauthorization this year, covering programs ranging from crop insurance for farmers to healthy food access for low-income families. And speaking of our good friends at the Delaware Food Bank, 9 students of the Food Bank of Delaware's Culinary School celebrated their achievements at a graduation ceremony last week, emphasizing second chances and pursuing passions. In 14 weeks, these folks gained culinary skills, serve safe certifications, as well as learning the importance of teamwork and time management. Graduate Clarissa Haglid found a lifeline in the program, noting its positive impact on her mental health and confidence. Kamika Moore, seen here, facing adversity after a divorce and injury, found hope through the homeless shelter Sojourner's Place and the Culinary School. The next 14-week program begins on September 11th. You can learn more at fbd.org. New today, the state treasurer is sounding the alarm about a possible grocery store merger, why she says it could be bad for Delawareans. Plus, if you had plans to tube down the Brandywine this holiday weekend, well, you're going to have to find another way to cool off. And the cameras were rolling as a reality star's famous daughter settled into her dorm at the University of Delaware. Those stories and much more straight ahead tonight on DETV News. Good evening and welcome to DETV News. I'm Matt Ford. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Making headlines today, Wilmington police are hoping the public can help them identify a suspect from an August 9th shooting. A 16-year-old male was found wounded in the 300 block of East 9th Street shortly after 7 p.m. on August 9th. The victim was hospitalized in stable condition at the time. Detectives are circulating this surveillance image of the possible suspect. Anyone with information on the case is asked to contact police on the number at your screen. And a tragic incident last night in Newcastle as a fatal crash claimed the life of a 69-year-old man. Police say around 9:15 p.m. an elderly man was operating a motorized wheelchair and attempting to cross Pulaski Highway at the intersection of Wilton Boulevard, directly in the path of a Toyota Camry. Police state the area is poorly lit and the man was not equipped with reflective clothing, a flashlight, or using a designated crosswalk. The Camry collided with the man, causing him to be ejected from the wheelchair and landing in the road. He was pronounced dead at the scene. His identity is being withheld until his family members can be notified. The driver of the Camry, a 47-year-old man from Newark, did not suffer any injuries. In other news, teams of engineers will be spending the next few weeks focused on Wilmington's sidewalks as part of a larger effort to make the city safe and accessible for those with disabilities. The goal is to be in complete compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was enacted in 1990 to ensure that people with disabilities are guaranteed access to all programs and services provided by state and local governments. The act has required state agencies to reconstruct several areas of public accommodations and public facilities. This usually includes making sure there's ramps to buildings and public places like parks and libraries are easily accessible. Wilmington Mayor Mike Przicki said Wednesday that the city aims to become a model of accessibility and is well on its way to more than welcoming city residents and visitors. The next phase of this American Disabilities Act self-assessment involves public rights of way such as sidewalks and alleys. Turning now to consumer news, the biggest security breach of the year has affected 60 million people so far, including customers of Delaware's biggest bank, M&T Bank. The hack dates back to the end of May, with experts saying that the hackers knew about the vulnerability in the software as far back as 2021. A ransomware group linked to Russia has reportedly claimed responsibility for these hacks. The biggest leak involves 11 million people serviced by a company called Maximus. Maximus manages federal data. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services say that the breach may have included basically everything about the health and personal identity of 612,000 current Medicare beneficiaries. So, what can you do if you think you may have been part of this or any data breach? Well, for best protection, freeze your credit. If you cannot freeze your credit right now, you're urged to place a fraud alert on your accounts. Next, check all 3 credit bureaus and watch your credit card activity. To protect your identity, you can follow these tips, which include not answering phone calls, texts, social media messages, or emails from numbers or people you do not know. Do not share personal information, collect your mail every day, and place a hold on your mail when you're going away on vacation or when you'll be away from your home. Also, learn when it is safe to use a public Wi-Fi network. And the Brandywine SPCA has announced that nearly all of the 14 dogs rescued from animal cruelty and living in poor conditions inside of a car are now ready for adoption. The 14 small breed canines were reportedly found on Friday living in a dirty SUV covered in feces, according to the SPCA. The recovery of the 14 follows the rescue that we told you about of 30 other dogs from a home in Lewis that were living in similar conditions earlier this month. An investigation of the Lewis case actually led to the arrest of 2 suspects in Rehoboth. Last week, they were charged with counts of animal cruelty. Those 2 suspects are barred from possessing dogs pending the outcome of their cases. The SPCA says nearly all of the 14 will be ready for their adoption debut today. Staff and medical personnel at the SPCA have reportedly provided veterinary care, bathing, grooming, spaying, neutering, and rehabilitation in preparation for the dogs' adoptions. You can also check out photos of the adorable dogs named for various Philadelphia Eagles players. For more information on the adoption from the Brandywine Valley SPCA, simply visit bvspca.org/adopt. And in other news, a popular spot for people to cool off with a swim, finish a tubing or kayak ride on the Brandywine Creek will remain closed this Labor Day weekend. The picnic area of the First State National Historic Park just south of Smith Bridge has been closed since a line of thunderstorms back on August 7th knocked down a series of trees.
We're actively working to clear the trees along trails and in other park areas, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to clear the trees here in the picnic area until sometime in October.
Crews were working near sunset overnight to attempt to reopen Beaver Dam Road, which leads directly to the picnics area's parking lot, as many trees still close to the road lay there. If the estimates of the October cleanup are correct, that would mean that the picnic area would see far less use as the water temperature cools and would see less traffic, while the trails, which are open now, would still see plenty of use through the winter. Delaware State Treasurer Colleen Davis and 6 other state treasurers from around the country have united to oppose the proposed merger of major grocery chains Kroger and Albertsons. The merger, valued at $24.6 billion, aims to combine Kroger's 2,700 stores with Albertsons' nearly 2,300 stores, reaching over 85 million households across the country. This step comes amid a changing grocery landscape with the dominance of Walmart and the emergence of budget markets like Aldi and others, and the growing threat of Amazon's grocery service, of course. Here's where it strikes a problem, however. The state treasurers are concerned about potential consequences for communities and workers. The merger could lead to store closures, creating what are called food deserts, and limiting access to fresh and affordable groceries. Additionally, they fear job losses and wage reductions for grocery store workers. A study suggests over 746,000 workers could face a total wage loss of $334 million, affecting bargaining power and labor conditions. As previously reported, Davis has also announced a 2024 bid for Congress. And a long-awaited plan to connect the Wilmington area with the 17-mile path is gaining some traction. A $23 million federal grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation is making the Newport River Trail a reality. This 2-mile shared use path, funded through the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grant, will wind alongside the wetlands of Christiana River. The Newport River Trail will connect to the Jack Markell Trail. The path will be ADA accessible starting at South James Street. The Newport River Trail includes a boardwalk over the Christina River's north bank, linking to an industrial park. It aims to bridge the missing link in the Wilmington Loop, which targets underprivileged city areas. Now, the Wilmington Loop is also supported by executives and business owners appealing to a car-averse younger workforce. Plans to cut out early for this Labor Day weekend? Well, we have a bit of good news for you. Some may save money on gas. According to AAA, the average cost for a gallon of gas in Delaware is now $3.64. That's about 12 cents cheaper per gallon than it cost last week to fill up, and 5 cents cheaper than last year's prices. A gallon is a few cents more expensive up in Newcastle County than in Kent and Sussex counties, AAA said. That Thursday, August 31st, between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. will be the busiest time on the roads during the Labor Day weekend, making it the worst time to drive. Now, Friday, September 1st, is also expected to have higher than normal traffic volumes between the hours of 11 a.m. and 9 p.m., making it less than ideal to travel on the road during those times. AAA still recommends drivers leave for their destinations before 7 a.m. or after 8 p.m. during the weekend. And in related news, the Delaware Office of Highway Safety said that state and local law enforcement will be participating in a Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign this weekend. The office says wrecks and arrests attributed to impaired driving are increasing in the first state. Last year, there were 1,201 crashes, 104 serious injuries, and over 4,600 arrests involving impaired drivings just here on Delaware roads alone, with men more likely than women to drive impaired and be involved in fatalities. During last year's Labor Day weekend, there were 5 fatal crashes and 3 involved impaired driving. Now, a reminder, a DUI can cost you about $10,000 in attorney's fees, fines, court losses, lost time at work, higher insurance rates, and more. AAA also reminds drivers to slow down and move over for first responders working at the roadside over the holiday weekend. The Move Over law requires motorists to slow down and, when possible, change lanes, moving away from police, fire, and emergency personnel, as well as tow drivers. And after days of playing the guessing game, Bruce Springsteen fans can mark their calendars for 2 postponed concerts originally set for Citizens Bank Park in Philly earlier this month. But fans are going to have to be patient since the boss has set new dates with the E Street Band for summer of 2024. Tickets for the Wednesday, August 16th, 2023 show are now going to be good for Wednesday, August 21st of next year. Tickets for the Friday, August 18th show of this year will be valid for Friday, August 23rd of 2024. All tickets purchased through phillies.com/Springsteen have a 30-day window to request a refund. Starting Wednesday, August 30th, that's today, fans interested in a refund can also do so at the website. Now, if you bought tickets through a secondary site like StubHub, you must go back to where the tickets were originally purchased to request a refund and review that company's individual policies. No information was released about why the Philly shows were postponed, other than the boss was simply sick. And before we go tonight, the University of Delaware could be getting some screen time on Bravo soon after a reality TV crew came to campus to follow the daughter of Real Housewives of New Jersey star as she moved into her dorm. Antonia Gorga, who has appeared on the reality show since she was 5 years old, moved into UD one day before everyone else moved in. According to Bravo, she chose UD over Penn State, Rutgers, and the University of Rhode Island. Gorga is the daughter of Melissa Gorga, who has starred on the reality series since 2011. Antonia chronicled her move-in experience on Instagram and TikTok, where she has a collective 450,000 followers. Her footage shows a Bravo cameraman squeezed into the small dorm, documenting her every move. The experience also drew attention from online tabloid websites and Bravo's website. The next season of The Real Housewives of New Jersey will premiere early in 2024.
Pack your patience if you're planning to drive this Labor Day weekend, and DELDOT is warning holiday drivers to be more attentive on the roads. And another candidate announces a run for lieutenant governor. Those stories and more are coming up next. You're watching DETV News. Hello and welcome to this edition of DETV News. Our top story is a police-involved shooting. It happened early yesterday morning around 7:20 near the Lowe's in Newcastle off of Hessler Boulevard. According to Delaware State Police, officers went to Lowe's for a report of a known fugitive shoplifting at the store. Detectives spotted the 28-year-old man fleeing from the store with a shopping cart full of merchandise. Reports indicate the alleged shoplifter began running from the police and jumped into a getaway car parked behind the store. That car hit an unmarked police vehicle while trying to escape. When stopped, the report goes on to say the suspect physically resisted arrest while troopers tried to take him into custody. Troopers shot the man when he apparently continued to drive in a manner that put officers in danger. The suspect was transported to an area hospital where he was pronounced dead. 2 troopers were treated and released from the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. The troopers involved in the shooting are now on administrative leave. That's standard policy while a full investigation takes place. Anyone with information about this case is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIP-3333. In other news, if you're not ready, get ready for this coming holiday weekend and the traffic that will come with it. Already, some major roadways are jammed. According to AAA, traffic volume will return to pre-pandemic volumes, especially since gas prices have dropped. Monday, Labor Day, is expected to be a very busy commute for those headed to the beach to get in that last unofficial end of summer. And this warning from DELDOT for drivers: watch out for the road crews and their vehicles. Just this week, 4 transportation department trucks have been hit by inattentive drivers. DELDOT made one social media post that showed a recent incident where an employee helping a driver of a disabled car on I-495 had his truck struck. That was a hit-and-run incident, and it happened on the Christina River Bridge. Fortunately, no one got hurt. The message from DELDOT for this holiday weekend is simple: slow down and watch out for others on the road. After Labor Day, drivers can expect to see the final phase of a redecking project on the Delaware Memorial Bridge to begin. It's the 3rd and final phase on the Jersey-bound span. The work will take place at night, with 2 lanes closing from 9 to 6 a.m. A 3rd lane will close from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. This project has slowed traffic on the bridge over the last 18 months, but the good news is it's expected to be finished by Thanksgiving. More traffic-related news. Traffic came to a standstill on Route 1 yesterday after a crash happened on the northbound side. All this during the morning rush hour shortly before 8 o'clock. Newcastle County paramedics found a 25-year-old man trapped inside his vehicle. He was rushed to the Christiana Hospital, where at last report he was listed in critical condition. And the race for lieutenant governor is starting to heat up. Yesterday, State Senator Kyle Evans-Gay announced she's throwing her hat in the ring. Evans-Gay was elected to the Delaware State Senate in 2020. State Senator and former Wilmington City Councilwoman Sherry Dorsey Walker made her official announcement back in June. Dorsey Walker won a seat in the Delaware House of Representatives in 2018. Another candidate, Debbie Harrington, announced she's also running for the seat. She currently serves as the Democratic Party's vice chair. All 3 candidates will face each other in a primary race. Turning now to a story that dates back to the pandemic, a lawsuit filed by 2 pastors who want to stop the governor from imposing future restrictions on religious worship has been dismissed for a second time. Despite that ruling, both pastors plan to file appeals. Thomas Newberger, the attorney representing the pastors, takes legal issues with churches that were ordered to close during the pandemic, while grocery, liquor stores, and stores like Walmart were allowed to remain open. The pastors' lawsuits claim the state's emergency orders handed down by Governor John Carney denied them their absolute religious freedoms. The governor's attorneys argue the chief executive is immune from damages for the alleged violations. In another court case, a man has been sentenced to life in prison for killing his mother, father, sister, and nephew in December of 2021. 41-year-old Donald Greer Jr. pleaded guilty but mentally ill to several charges. The 4 victims were all stabbed at a home in Townsend. State prosecutors said Greer was delusional at the time. And Delaware State Police want to know who killed a man who was found dead on a trail in Dover. Troopers were called to South Bay Road and President Drive for a report of a man found on the ground in a wooded area. Investigators say that man is 63-year-old Mark Garrett of Dover. He apparently died from blunt force injuries. Anyone with information about this case is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIP-3333. In other news, you may have wondered why flags were at half-staff yesterday. It was to mark International Overdose Awareness Day. IOAD is the world's largest annual campaign to end overdoses. It also recognizes the stigma those who have died from an overdose have and acknowledges the grief felt by their families. Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer marked the occasion at a flag-lowering ceremony that was held at the Government Center. And the career of country singer Jimmy Allen may have taken a nosedive nationally, that after allegations of sexual misconduct surfaced, but not here in his home state. The Milton-born singer has not been charged with any crimes, but he was dropped by his record label while singing and TV engagements quickly dried up. Despite that, he's been performing in local bars. He's also participated in local charity events like Duffy's Hope celebrity basketball game. Just last week, Allen tried his hand at stand-up comedy at a theater in Milton, and he will be hosting a bowling tournament at the Mid-County Lanes and Entertainment Center in Middletown on September 9th. Allen is also scheduled to be a headliner at the Bottle and Cork on September 29th down in Dewey Beach. That event sold out in 2 minutes, so a second was added on September 28th, but it too sold out. Looks like in Allen's case, the saying holds true, there's no place like home. And finally tonight, don't forget to mark Saturday, September 23rd on your calendar. That's the day DETV will sponsor its first 5K scholarship run. You can run or walk with a purpose for $25 or $150 as a team. There are also sponsorship packages. To learn more about this great cause, you can register online at the website on your screen. And that's going to do it for this edition of DETV News. Remember to stay safe this holiday weekend, and it looks like it's going to be a good one weather-wise. I'm Lauren Wilson. Thanks for watching, and as always, catch us on all social media platforms and at DETVCH.com.